So we got another episode. It's like my third episode with Lessons to Blessings podcast. You know what I mean? In this podcast, we talk about recovery based of anything that's recovery. It doesn't matter if it's from a broken foot, a breakup, marriage, or whatever, divorce. You know what I mean? A car wreck, all the way to, you know what I mean, drug addiction, to alcoholism. The basis of this is just getting the message out there of recovery. And for the people that can't make it to a meeting or, you know what I mean, have no ways of contact through anybody, but at the same time, I am in place. I am not here to diagnose anybody or give anybody and tell anybody what to do. You know what I mean? All I can do is just, I'm like an advocate. I could just point you in the right direction. I mean, and I am very blessed to have one of my friends on the episode with me. Her name's Alyson. We've been friends for about a year and some change now. This woman is very amazing because of what she does and what she continues to do in people's lives and how she reaches them. You know what I mean? When I'm talking like she's going into the trenches. She goes into the trenches. Like she's in the shit, you know what I mean? And as somebody said to me, she is a candle in the light and the darkness, you know what I mean? So best believe she has that. I mean, she has a lot of status in the streets of just helping people get out. And I'm one of them, you know what I mean? And she helped me from day one since I met her, you know what I mean? And I'm just glad that she chose to come on the show, for real, you know what I mean? Like, so other than that, you know what I mean? If you want to introduce yourself, okay. It's up to you.
Well, here we are in the car again, Jay.
Yep. Once again, this is
where we met. This is where it all started.
Oh, boy. I was in this car in the same seat, same car, everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was crazy how we first met. You know what I mean? I was lost.
You came a long way, though.
Yeah.
Really long way.
Really long way. Far away.
So.
But other than that, you know what I mean? I want to reach out to people and just say, well, hey, like, so where'd everything start for you? How did it come in terms of like you knew you had a problem, or was it influences, or was it trauma, or how did you start picking up? What was your...
Well, I knew that I had a problem when I was probably like 16. Because I don't know, growing up in a small town, I got into the alcohol, marijuana pretty early, young, hanging out with way older guys, and partying and things like that. And I knew I couldn't stop, right? But I didn't see that yet that it was a problem as far as like affecting other areas of my life. Like I was going to school high, I was going to work high, all my positive social networks disconnected. You know, all the activities and groups that I was doing in school stopped. And my whole life became about essentially finding, getting, and using, you know. I did manage to graduate high school, luckily. And, I didn't really know what to do with my life. I just knew that the norm was to go to college. So I went to like a community school. Before I left Larimore, though, I met a guy. He was a year younger than me. And he come from a pretty rough home, and I didn't grow up in a rough home, right? Like blue collar family, working parents, one little sister. Not a whole lot of, from what I could see at the time, like trauma. And I was so kind of, I would say probably naive to what was to come, because I hadn't experienced like the domestic violence portion of my life kicked in at that point. Like I went to college and I was dating this guy, and he started getting really obsessive and really angry, and like I had to come home every single weekend. And he was, I don't know, I didn't really know the warning signs, but they were there, when I got out of it. When I look back, they were there. I just didn't know them because I didn't see that modeled in my home.
Yeah. And
so that was kind of like the first big thing. So of course I continued to like drink and party and experiment with all sorts of other, like acid, mushrooms, like cocaine, things like that, but they weren't like on a regular basis. Mainly it was just marijuana and alcohol. And when I got done with school, I I was still with that guy, and I moved in with him, and I got pregnant within within the first 6 months. And like the abuse really kicked in high gear when I was living with him. We both, I mean, I got pregnant, right? But I was still smoking marijuana. He was doing meth, drinking. I was pretty much just made to stay at home and be pregnant and take care of the house,
Yeah.
And I stayed, I didn't work. It was rough. But I didn't know how to get out of it. I couldn't figure out how I got myself into it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's crazy.
yeah, I really thought that like I could change him or fix him, of course. And I stayed. When our daughter was born, he was. I remember him coming in. My friend had to take me in because he wasn't home. He was out drinking, and he showed up at the hospital with a 12-pack, just hammered.
Yeah.
And like I told him to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
I don't want you here. It was like I wanted him, but I didn't want him the way that he was.
Yeah.
I loved him, but I knew that I couldn't change him or fix him. So, like he held on to me and I held on to him for whatever reason. I don't know. And then when our daughter was 4 months old, I found out I was pregnant again. Oh, oh yeah. So yeah, things just didn't ever really get better at home. They just got worse. Like there was a lot of physical abuse, a lot of mental, emotional abuse, a lot of power and control. It was almost like, I don't know, like living in the 1950s, like, like the man works,
yeah,
drinks, does what he wants, and the woman cooks, cleans, takes care of the kids, and everything else, And I, for some reason, like I said, stayed. I don't know why I stayed. But as the girls, and the abuse got worse, of course, like as time progressed. And so after I had my second daughter, that's when I started going back to work, right? When they got to be like 2 and 3 years old and we were able to like afford daycare, I was going crazy by then. I wanted to get out of the house. He kept me like under his thumb. I wasn't able to go anywhere or do anything. He alienated me from like any friends I had, because what happens is like I make plans to go hang out with a girlfriend or something and get out of the house for a few minutes or go do something besides being a productive parent and mother and available to take a break. And the phone calls would start and the harassing would start. And then it would just end up being like I would go home because I was so sick of dealing with like him freaking out, And so it got to be so many times that those things would happen with different people. He would talk all my friends down and think I was going to cheat on him or whatever, But I just quit. I quit connecting with people because I didn't want to put up with it anymore.
Yeah.
And he just slowly isolated me. So the one of the jobs that I ended up getting was a bartending job. He hated that. That was rough.
I think for a man it'd be like, kind of.
Yeah.
You'd have.
Well, I was trying to get into his scene. That's where he was always at.
Okay.
So I thought, well, maybe if I went there, I could hang out with them, and we could, connect in some way. So I kind of went that route. Well, when I went to the bartending scene, that's where, I started using like opiates. This older lady I was working with had like a prescription for pain meds, and she, chopped it up and threw a line back down in the back and was like, here, check this out. You'll be able to move a little quicker or whatever. And I'm like, okay. And from there, it just kind of took off. I, started doing those pretty much every day, every single day. And I started like my whole life again became about like finding, getting, and using. And all my money was going towards that. And I was trying to hide it because like from him, you know what I mean? Obviously from my family and everything.
So when it comes down to it, he was just more like alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
He was just more alcohol.
And he would go through spurts of using like meth and cocaine, but like alcohol is his
bread and butter.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, and of course, like I didn't want him to find out because I don't know why. Like because he was mean, and he was really mean.
Yeah.
I don't know. So, yeah, so like, we lived together, we moved a couple times. Like at this point, it was really just my life was really difficult. However, I still continued to like excel with being able to work. I kind of like used work as a way to like as a vacation, as a way to get away from him, get away from the kids, get away from the everyday mundane stuff that had been going on for years that I was stuck in, that I felt like I was just being held down,
Yeah.
And so I kind of like unleashed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I started like acting out, like obviously like cheating on him and stuff. And because I knew that, I mean, that's what he was doing to me, but I never had done it back.
Yeah.
So I started just not caring anymore about myself about myself, about our relationship, because he made me to feel like I couldn't leave him. I was worthless. Like, you got 2 kids. Who's ever gonna, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you're ugly. Like, the things that he would say to me were really hurtful. Like, I don't know how graphic you want to get, but like, it was just really bad.
Yeah.
I don't
So
even.
at the same time, he was diminishing yourself with the drugs, and at the same time, he's just throwing you down.
Yeah.
Throwing you down
Constantly.
Yeah.
So I lost myself. I didn't know who I was anymore, and it just felt so good to be high and have that break from the pain. Like, especially with the opiates, like, not only does it like take away your physical pain, which is what it's made for, it takes away emotional pain. And and then, fast forward a few years, I started working as like, I had experience from when I was in like high school with my mom being a manager at like a banquet place, a vets club. And then I also had the bartending experience. So then I got a job at a hotel, working banquets. And I stayed there for a few years, still enduring at home with all the abuse, and the kids growing up and seeing it, and me like leaving a lot of times. I can't even tell you how many times I packed my kids up, both in car seats, like, like in the middle of the winter, doesn't matter what time it was, and I would go stay at my parents' house, and then I would go back 2 days later, or, like, I just kept leaving, and no one around me could do anything to stop me or like help me to get out of it. I just kept going back. And I'll kind of come back to like that whole thing later on, but because hindsight's 2020, and I realized what I was doing later on when I got well. But like, I ended up getting a really good job at the Canad Inns, and I ended up going from like a banquet captain type thing to like assistant manager, and then I got like a manager job in sales. My addiction was full on like just turned up, and my home life was absolute chaos, and I had like this like really great job. It was living like 2 different lives, kind of like 3. I had my home life, I had my using life, and I had my work life. And I kept it all separated and like compartmentalized and like handled it, and until obviously until I couldn't anymore, but that comes a little bit later. But yeah, so 2013, the girls, our kids, 2012 we had another baby.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, so like a little bit of a gap there, so I had him boom boom, and then 7-8 more years go by and I have another one. So he and I together had 3 girls, and Callie, our youngest, the last one, she was about like 13 months old. And there, like in between all of these years that we were together, it was 12 years all in all, like out of high school all the way till I was 29, I think. I don't remember, 30. There were multiple police reports, multiple like domestic violence, on file, like just. But after a certain period of time of me doing that, I stopped calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, this last time that something happened, like, Callie was like starting to walk, and he got mad at me because I had went to my friend's house and I was gone a little bit too long, and it was at supper time, and like he had to like tend to the kids for a few minutes, right, at supper time, which was apparently too difficult for him. He didn't think it was his job or whatever, so When I got back, he really flipped out. Of course, he was intoxicated on alcohol. And he had me, he was like shoving me around and putting me in the corner and stuff. Callie came around the corner and like he, in our scuffle, like knocked her down.
Oh.
And I lost it. Like, I threw a space heater at him. I kicked him in the balls. Like, I flipped out. I mean, I scratched him. Like, Mama Bear came out because nothing like that had ever happened. Like, all the violence was always towards me.
Yeah.
You know, physically. Like, emotionally, mentally, it was toward all of us. But when I seen that Callie almost got hurt, I lost it. And and then he ran off and left, and I called the police, and they came. And when they came that time, the older girls were 7 and 8, and the sheriffs actually looked at me and they were like, what really happened here? Because he's pretty roughed up. Yeah. Instead of me that time, you know? And I was like, well, I'll tell you what happened, you know? And I told them what happened, and that was the first time that they ever actually had to like talk to the kids too. Yeah. Because they were right there and saw it. Yeah. And they clearly like saw it happen and told them what happened, and he got arrested, and, you know, CPS got involved. And then I had to get a protection order. Yeah. I really think that saved my life, you know, like from going back to him again, allowing him back, you know? Yeah. After so many years of like continual just not being able to break that cycle and trying to leave so many times, and you know, throughout all of this, you know, my addiction is getting worse, and I'm getting into all sorts of other things and getting sidetracked and just trying to focus on anything but how shitty my life was at home. Yeah. And so yeah, I went from being with him for 12 years, now pretty much every day, to not seeing him except for in court. And then he violated the protection order a few times, which in turn then allowed me to get a second one for a second year.
So was that kind of like a relief whenever that actually happened when he got took away? Was that like
yeah, but you know, at the same time, instantly I was like, what did I just do?
Yeah, because you've been with the guy for so long.
Like, and he had me so brainwashed into thinking that I couldn't do it without him. But I, at this time, had been working for a little bit of time, and I had that good job. And it took me like 2 or 3 months to kind of let it sink in that, what the hell is wrong with me? Like, I can do this on my own. Yeah. I already am doing this on my own. What is this good for? I had to really break it down to like on a daily basis, you know, at what point or what percentage of my day with him in my life and my kids' life is a good day? What part of the day is good? Like on a like a normal, regular basis. And really what I thought about was like, well, if I'm lucky, maybe like 5-10% is a positive experience with him in our day-to-day life. Yeah. And like, it really just like woke me up. And I had to take like a victims class with like domestic violence, and I learned a lot in there. Okay. So here's the reason why. This is how sick I was. He had to take a domestic violence class as an offender, right? Yeah. So because he had to take that, I thought I better do something too. Yeah. You know? Because I felt bad for him having to do that.
Okay. So you just felt it upon yourself and said, well, hey, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
So in all this means of like, when you said like the CPS got involved, did like they remove the kids? Or they just threatened you and just said, hey?
They pretty much just said, you know, well, essentially he got charged with child abuse and endangerment. Okay. And I got charged with child abuse and endangerment.
Okay.
I did. And that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
But the facts were that there were many times that the law enforcement had been called.
Yeah.
And there was proof that there was no reason that I should have kept my kids as an adult woman in that situation. I knew better. Yeah. But I stayed. And so they charged me with it too. Yeah. Even though I was a victim of domestic violence, and that really, until I was able to like kind of process, it took me a couple of years to like stop being angry about that, you know? Because I was like, excuse me.
Yeah. That's one thing, like, people, like, the message you give out, too, is, like, you know how it feels to be brainwashed. Yeah. You know how it feels for a man to manipulate you, to put you through situations that you're not very comfortable with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
your message is going to help a lot of people, a lot of women that are in that situation.
Yeah.
That are afraid to speak up and, well, like the proof is there, the calls were there,
Yep.
but they're still trapped.
It is. And I understand how hard it is to leave because they have us to feel like we can't make it without them for X, Y, and Z reason, whatever. No one's going to love you. Who's going to pay for things, you know? And that's what they do. Like, they isolate and they keep you from these things so where you can be independent and self-sufficient.
Yeah.
So that they can say those things and then we believe the lies.
Yeah.
I believe the lies. So, yeah. So, I there I was, you know, I had a good job. I finally broke chains, you know, with that. And I just dove really into work a lot. And then probably about 6 months, like after he was out of the picture, I was like, well, how am I ever going to find a man? Like, I have 3 kids at home. I work full time, but I'm like, I was so used to having somebody. You know what I mean? Even if it was a shitty situation, I always had someone there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I got on this dating app.
Oh no! Oh no! She went part of the dating app. I ain't gonna lie.
It's like, what else am I gonna do? Where am I gonna meet somebody? So I ended up hooking up, like not hooking up, but I ended up meeting with like 3 guys, and I was like, it was so amazing. Like, I could see the red flags this time around.
Yeah.
I could see, like, oh, hell no. Yeah. Bye. Block. You know, and it was just like, next, you know, and then I met this one guy, but I only just talked to him over the phone because he lived like an hour and a half away, and I didn't actually meet him in person, and we talked for like 2-3 months on the phone, and finally one day we decided to actually meet at my work, and I had been, like, at this point, I had started, like, dabbling into methamphetamine, but it wasn't, like, at this point, it was mainly just the opiates, you know? It was mainly opiates and marijuana, some cocaine, but not, like, the lead dog was opiates, 100%, and, so I, like, when we met, I didn't share with him, like, that I was addicted to pain pills and, like, snorted them and, like, a psycho. Like, looked everywhere, and I did really terrible things to get them, you know? Like, ridiculous. And he didn't really share with me the extent of his alcoholism.
Yeah.
So, you know, we kind of put on a show for each other for the first, like, 6 months, but
truth always comes out.
Yeah. You can only hold on to it for so long, right?
You can only ride a lie for so long.
Yeah. Right? So, and then of course I end up kind of like, because I wanted to do what I wanted to do and we were hanging out so much, and I was like, finally, just like, here, you know, like, why don't you try this? You know? Like, so I kind of like threw him under the bus with what I was doing, and I was drinking more because that's what he was doing. So, but
this is gonna make it more better.
Yeah, so that I can do what I want to do without trying to hide it, you know. Yeah. But he was amazing. Like, he was like absolutely nothing I had ever experienced in my entire life. Like, he would come to town and hang out with me and my kids, and he would like cook supper with me, and like wash my laundry and fold it, and like sit down and watch TV with me and my kids, and like, I don't know, mow the lawn. Weird stuff that I'd never seen a guy do. Yeah. And I remember my middle daughter, Bella, saying to him one time, and she was like 9, like, what are you doing all these things for? Guys don't do this. Yeah. She'd never seen those types of things modeled by a guy before, ever. So it really kind of was weird. And I was kind of super sketched out about it because I was like, what's really going on with this guy? You know, like, this is too good to be true type shit. Yeah. But anyway, so, you know, he ended up proposing to me after we were together for like a year and a half. And me and my girls moved to Fargo with him. We moved in with him. I just wanted to get out of here. I wanted me and my kids to get out of here. Like, we were still dealing with a lot of like their biological dad like trying to come around, even though there was a protection order. Yeah. I was ordered by social services to like facilitate like co-parenting with him.
Yeah.
So like it was tricky because I couldn't see him, he couldn't see me, but we had to like share the kids somehow. But the thing was is that he wouldn't, hold up with his appointments. He wouldn't show up. Like he was just not consistent. So I got sick of trying, but like I still had to, you know what I mean? So anyway, we moved to Fargo, and that's when shit really hit the fan. Fargo. I got a job selling Aflac, right? I got a job selling Aflac. Danny was, working full time. We had his kids every other weekend, and then, so together we have 5 girls. And
so Danny's the one you moved to Fargo with. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Danny boy. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's Danny boy. So yeah, I mean, so I was still like maintaining my addiction. But I had really gotten a little bit more into the meth because it was cheaper. It was cheaper than buying pills. And I kind of did that on the down low until once again I didn't, and like Danny started doing it with me, right?
Yeah.
And then we met, we started like meeting more people on that scene and that front in Fargo, and really got into some like levels of like the drug world that I didn't even know existed in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
That's just one thing about it is the devil
didn't even know.
This can happen in the smallest towns. You would never know. You would never think of that had drugs in it or anything like that.
Yep.
There's drugs anywhere.
Yeah. But, so we really started getting ourselves in deep and getting in debt, and with, my parents having to like bail us out all the time, and we were lying to him all the time. And so, like I said, he had proposed to me, right? And so my parents had paid for like a destination wedding in Jamaica. And we were so high that we didn't even get our passports.
Oof.
And we lied to my family, and we told them that like we'd applied for them, but they weren't going to be here in time, and the whole thing had to be canceled. And we got married in my mom's front yard. But that's something that that addiction stole from me, was that, and we were so high on our wedding day, like I don't even remember. I really barely remember our wedding.
Oh,
and neither does he really, and so I don't know, like another year went by, and essentially my parents, we were still in Fargo, and we were still just going downhill super fast. And my parents ended up showing up because everybody knew something was wrong, but they didn't know what it was, right? And we were far enough away that they couldn't really like, we always knew when they were coming so we could put on a show. I mean, my mom and dad, my sister, my stepdad, and my cousin all showed up, and the kids got taken. My parents got a U-Haul and said, you have 2 days to pack this house, like whole house up, an entire house, and get your asses to Larimore. You're coming to live. Like we had to go live as a family with mom and dad. Yeah. All 5 of us in Larimore. That's where it all started. Really in rough shape. And so of course, big time. And we ended up packing the U-Haul, doing everything we could, before we had to go back. And we went to Larimore, and then my dad and my brother-in-law at the time went to Fargo to pick up the U-Haul. And so many people knew that our house got ransacked. Like all of our shit that was packed, a bunch of stuff got stolen. A lot of stuff got stolen. Like the door was open when they got there, you know what I mean? Because the people that we deal with when we're out there, they're all for themselves and just whatever. Like they went through our whole shit. And
so did you guys they just knew you guys up and left?
They knew we were leaving. They knew that our house was packed.
Oh, okay.
Like because we had a bunch of people over and we were using so much, and like the last 2 days we were there, we just like so many people caught wind that what was happening.
Yeah.
And knew. that there wasn't going to be anybody at the house, and we had our whole, everything was there.
Yeah.
So anyway, that really sucked. And I guess just to like talk about a little, I don't like to focus on the destruction or the things that happen, but like the things that I would do in Fargo were, like prostituting myself to get meth, to get pills. I had we had two vehicles, right?
Yeah.
Well, we lost a vehicle in a drug deal because like we were trying to come up on something or whatever from two different sides, being the middleman, and we let the guy that had the most stuff hold our car keys until our dude came back with the money that the dude let him front. And well, he came back with the money, we gave him the money. But while I was feeding the guy supper at our house, a friend of his came and like didn't think anything of it. Well, he slipped that guy our keys.
Yeah.
So when we went back up to get our car from the Vista, it was gone. And we never got it back.
Yeah.
So that was a whole nother fiasco and a whole nother thing we had to come up with our parents about, lying about where's the whole fucking car at.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a shit show. Anyway, I really don't like to even think about Fargo, talk about Fargo, go to Fargo. Yeah. Just so many things happen there.
So in your point of everything that did happen, when did it click for you? When was that moment?
Well, it was really scary when my parents showed up and I had to tell them what was really going on. That was scary. It didn't click all at once. That was my first click.
Yeah.
That was the first like moment of clarity. So we got mom and Mark's and we're, still using, trying to hide it, getting back connected with all the connections I had in Grand Forks and Larimore. Because when we moved to Fargo, here's how it worked. When we moved to Fargo, I was still coming back to Grand Forks and Larimore to get shit because I didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
And then when we came back to Larimore, I was having to go all the way to Fargo to still get shit.
Oh, man.
Because I had disconnected and had to reconnect all these things. And so we were still messing around. And so I went to like an outpatient treatment for women at Northeast Human Services groups and stuff, and I kept failing my UAs and it was a mess. Like this kind of part of my story is a little bit of blurry on like timelines and things like that because I don't know what I was just still trying to use.
Yeah.
We ended up staying and living at mom and Mark's for like 5 months, and then my dad moved out of the house that I grew up in. My parents had divorced a few years back, and he moved in with his girlfriend and let us live in the house that I grew up in. Like really full circle with the kids.
Oh geez.
Yeah. And so anyway, we're still messing around, we're still hiding the fact that we're using. And then, my ex caught wind of what had happened.
Yeah. About
my parents come to Fargo, and like he had been really nowhere in our lives for the last 2-3 years,
Yeah.
But when he found that out, he came. And he called social services and he was trying to get the kids, and like it was a mess, and my kids were fine. They were with my parents, but like social services got involved. I kept failing UAs. Like me and Danny were trying, we did all we could to try and pass UAs and still use.
Yeah.
Until they started doing the mouth swabs, and then we were like, well, there goes that. And really trying to use still, even though all these consequences had happened and things were going on, and social services, and like it got to the point that summer where like we couldn't even see the kids unless we were supervised by my parents, and that's when everything really went downhill. That was in the summer of 2018, and like I started using the needle. That was when that came in with meth. So it used to be just opiates were my lead dog, right? Well, now I had to have opiates, and I also had to have meth. And I always, like, marijuana was just a given. Yeah. Like, whatever. I had to have all three. If I didn't have all three, I was finding and getting whatever ones I needed to get. Just to make sure that I had what I needed. And still doing, just stupid shit to get the money. I never did any, like, doctor shopping, but I definitely knew who in town, had just been in a car accident, or, who might have some pain meds in there,
Yeah.
like the old people burglarizing homes,
Just coming friends
for
with
pills.
old people.
Yeah. Hey, you got a bunk pen?
Yeah.
Hey, can I use your bathroom?
Yeah.
I don't know. It was just gross, and I don't know. I knew that I really knew I needed help at that point because social services was involved. I knew I didn't want to lose my kids.
Yeah.
But I couldn't stop. That's when it got scary.
Yeah.
That's when it got really scary for me. And I was willing to go to treatment. And Danny had a really good job. He got a job after we moved up here at a place that had really good insurance. So, and we were married. So I was able to use that insurance of his and go to like one of the best treatment places ever. It's Hazelden. Betty Ford Center. They have them all over the United States, but the one I went to was in Center City, Minnesota. So that was my first like experience at an inpatient treatment facility. It was huge. It was awesome. I learned a lot about the disease of addiction. I was introduced there to like Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know. I was willing to like cut ties with everybody before I left. My dad gave me a ride down there, and like I remember deleting just all the numbers and everything off my phone, like 200 contacts. And when I got done with it, I had like 11, and it was just like immediate family.
Okay. I
realized at that point too that like nobody is really my friend. They're all just drug acquaintances.
Yeah.
I have no one, And so I'm gone and I'm in treatment, and then I come back, I get a job, and I end up having like an emergency surgery like 2 months after I got out of treatment.
Yeah.
And I had told my doctor even that I do not want pain meds. Yeah. I had a little bracelet that said no opioids. Right?
Yeah.
I was proud of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, I like whatever happened in the surgery, and they ended up having to keep me overnight, which wasn't planned, and it was worse than it was supposed to be, right? So immediately my head went to, I can't handle this pain. I need pain meds. And I was able to get pain meds.
Was that hard? It was not hard at all?
It wasn't hard. Like they knew that, but I also, looking back, know that like
so
I could have made it without pain meds that night. Yeah, but I chose not to. That was the disease coming back and being like, here's your opportunity, bitch. Get them. And I was snorting them off the bathroom counter before I even left. Yeah. And back off, I had a needle in my arm a week later. And I went for 9 more months running hard. Both Danny and I, until I got arrested. And when I got arrested, like, that was my first time. First time ever getting arrested for anything. Never been to jail, nothing, and I got caught with possession and paraphernalia, and there was the whole fake pee, even whatever that is, fake urine, whatever, some stupid charge for that. And it was our pal Shane.
Yeah,
he came around to the side of my car over here in Larimore. I know he'd been watching me. I'm sure they all were.
Yeah.
Because I was a known user, and I was not really a dealer, but I was always like a middleman. I would always have like somebody's whole prescription of pills on them, because I would sell them for people so I could get some for free and then get a discounted price,
Yeah.
So I had like a whole prescription of someone else's, like a t-shirt or more on me usually.
Yeah.
Trying to come up to feed my addiction. You know what I mean? Just always playing middleman, running the streets. And well, my vehicle at the time had a little seat, like a hidey ho underneath the passenger. Yeah. So I lifted it up quick and threw my little case and everything in there. And he came up on the side of my car. Well, and I can't see the angle right here, what's down here, right?
Yeah.
While I'm talking to him. And he's like, right away, he's like, step out of the car. I said, for what? What'd you even pull me over for? Like I was super confused, and my tutor was sticking up. It didn't make it all the way into the hatch. So he saw my bright yellow tutor sticking up right down here, because he came to that side of the door.
Yeah.
So I went to jail. My parents wouldn't get me out. Danny couldn't even get me out. It was only $300 to bond me out. But we were so broke because we were using, and we didn't have the money. And my dad told me, like, the girls don't even want you to come home. Oof. That was my second in the heart. And I was like, what? And I lost my mind. Um, you know, um, so I took, pled guilty to the charges and then decided to go to treatment again. But in between when I got out of jail and waiting for a treatment bed, my mom was like, oh, she had me come stay at her house. She would like, because I was still trying to use Jay,
Yeah.
And they took my car keys away. They took my phone. They took, like I was like I felt like a kid, and I was just like a psycho I don't know. I just wanted to use, and I didn't want to feel that pain or deal with any of it, and I think the most of the pain where it came from was being exposed.
Yeah.
Like, cause I was playing like I was still clean and cause I had been to treatment, but for 9 months since treatment, I had been in a relapse. Like I had been in active use and I was found out. Gigs up. So, I used all the way up until the moment I went into treatment at Candu, Heartview. And, that was, it was on my birthday actually. My birthday's February 29th, but there wasn't a leap year that year. So it was February 28th of 2018. Or 2019, sorry. And, so that's the last time I used.
Oh.
When I went to treatment. And I'm coming up on like almost 5 years clean and sober. I haven't used anything. Nothing. Just clean. And so I got out of treatment and I knew like the skills that I had learned there, were how to sit with myself, how to be quiet, how to sit still, how to like just be. Because I was so used to like the lifestyle and the going and going and going and being high. And I picked up a book for the first time since like probably, since I was made to read one in 7th or 8th grade, you know what I mean? And I actually sat with myself. I didn't really socialize. I didn't care to, and I came out of there and I got home and I knew what I wanted. I wanted to stay clean.
Yeah.
And then guess what happened?
What?
Danny's using still.
Ooh. I bet that was kind of hard though, you know what I mean? Like
Danny was using still and he thought he could play me.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, get the fuck out of here, dude. This is not, and it went on for, a little while, like probably like 3-4 weeks and like right in front of me. He wasn't using in front of me, but he was high in front of me, trying to play like he wasn't. And it started to get to me. Like I was starting to lose my mind.
Yeah.
I was fighting so hard to stay clean and I knew at any moment I could just, flip him and tell him, okay, that's it. Give me some.
Yeah.
Quit fucking around and give me some, you know what I mean? The third time something clicked in my head was when I was out in the garage late one night because I needed, even though I knew he was high, I knew he was using, like, I needed to prove it, right? I needed it in my hand so I could throw it in his face and tell him to get out. I'm done,
Yeah.
So I was in the garage, like, digging around, trying to find, like, the paraphernalia or the shit or whatever. And I just, all of a sudden, it was like the first time I could decipher that it, like, I was in my diseased mind.
Yeah.
Like, what's really going to happen when you find it? What are you really trying to do here?
Yeah.
Like, I heard the opposite side of that. Like, call me out and be like, what are you going to do when you find it? Are you actually going to kick him out and make him leave? Or are you going to use it? What are you trying to do here? Why are you looking for it?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I kind of like snapped out of it and I called my mom and I told her what was going on and I hadn't told anybody because I think I was still on the fence of like if I wanted to jump back in or not or, and I called my mom and I did something different and I told him and I, told her how I was feeling and that I couldn't live in this and stay clean.
Yeah.
That he was going to have to leave. Like.
Yeah. So you just ended up telling your mom everything.
Yep.
What he was doing.
Yes.
This is like, oh.
Yep. And so we gave him like a week to get clean. And like take a clean UA, and he refused, but he said he was clean, but he refused, And I already knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And then like the next week, he left. He left. And that literally broke my heart. It broke my heart. It broke my kids' heart. But I knew that I had to make that decision. Like I had to stand strong because it was going to suck me back in. And I knew that no, even though like, I mean, he was my husband. He adopted my kids.
Yeah.
Like he didn't have to do that, but he did. He adopted my kids and he was my husband, and you know, he was everything I could have ever asked for and more, and never knew that was even available in life in a man, you know?
Yeah.
And I watched him walk out the door and choose to keep using, and that like crushed me. And you know, like he had to figure it out for himself for a little bit, but it didn't take long because he came back.
Yeah.
And he chose to go to treatment, outpatient treatment. And so, like, my clean date's March 1st of 2019, and his is May 15th.
Okay.
So he quit. I don't know. Not too long after he came back, it was Easter, right? And mostly to appease my mom, we were going to church, you know, because to her, in her mind, us going to church meant that we weren't high.
Yeah.
Even though, like, we were going to church high,
yeah.
you know, but at that point in time when we really were clean, we kept going, you know, because it was something that we felt we needed to do for my mom to prove to her, you know what I mean, that we were really okay and that we were trying to straighten our priorities out and everything. And I was actually, you know, there was a lady, the pastor's wife, that was really just kind of feeding me. Well, first of all, my pastor and his wife were there, like, supporting my mom through a lot of what was going on with Danny and I.
Yeah.
And so they were very, they would come to, like, social service meetings with us and show us support. They would, like, they were just there. Like, she would meet with me every week, even when I was actively using, to, like, just spoon feed scripture to me, truth, and, like, help me to try and open my eyes, you know, and show me the love that I really was looking for. And, like, so I decided I wanted to give my life to Jesus.
Yeah.
And I was baptized on Easter Sunday, like, just 3 months after I got out of treatment. Like, well, I was like 3 months clean, 2 months after I got out of treatment.
Yeah.
And that's really when, like, I don't know, I just got convicted of so many things. Like, even though I was clean and in recovery, like, not using, I was still stealing from stores. I was still cheating on my husband.
Yeah.
I was still, you know, not a good person. Yeah. And all of a sudden, like, all these things, like, one by one over the next, like, 6 months, gotta go. This gotta go too. That's gotta go too. And it was painful, you know, but I knew that it was the right thing. And I knew for once that I actually had the ability to do it. Like, I never had that before.
Yeah.
I never had that power. You know what I mean? To just know that something's wrong and choose not to do it. I would pass by those all the time.
Yeah.
And not even look back or give a shit. I didn't care if it was wrong. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was experiencing something that I had never experienced in my life ever, like, with that power, you know? So that was pretty awesome. And I didn't go to work after that. I just went to meetings, man. I literally just went to, like, 5 meetings a day. Dang. For like 6-8 months. I was so scared, you know? I was scared of myself.
Yeah.
So I put myself, and because I had been introduced to, like, NA and AA when I went to that first treatment, and also in the second treatment I was in, a meeting would come in, I knew where to go when I got out.
Yeah.
I knew where to go. And so I just literally showed up. Like, I would drive 30 miles twice a day to go to multiple meetings. Like, I would hit like 3 in a row, and then I would come back to town and go to 2.
Yeah.
And I was an intensive outpatient at the same time, and a group called Dialectical Behavioral Therapy at the time. So, like, my whole life for like 7 months was all about recovery.
Yeah.
Like I did nothing but that. And it was hard for my family too, because like I was gone just as much, if not more than I had been prior when I was using, you know? And I remember always having to like put my location on for my family so that they could see that I was at the antenna.
Yeah.
Or at the Sharon Lutheran Church, or at, you know, like so that they knew that I wasn't out doing things I shouldn't be doing.
Yeah.
You know, and it felt good to be willing to do that, because in the past it had been like, no, that's fucking dumb. I'm not doing that. If you don't believe me, go fuck yourself. You know, and like I was a totally different person. I just surrendered. I gave up. I was done. And so I completed my treatment, and I ended up like wanting to work. I was like ready to step back into some kind of work, and I just went and worked at like this little diner as a server.
Okay.
I went all the way back to the very beginning of, you know, like when I left the Can-Ad, I didn't leave the Can-Ad. I shouldn't say that. They walked me out. Because of my behavior and because of suspicions that were true, that were never able to be proven, that I did take a lot of money, you know? But I was like in charge of like 50 people. I was scheduling people. I was a manager for like 3 different departments. Like, and now I went back to where I'm serving tables. Yeah. And I didn't care. I was so happy, you know, and it was perfect. And it just got my foot in the door. And when I finished my treatment and stuff, this lady that was my addiction counselor, and she was the teacher for DBT class and my individual LAC, like she was just with me through the whole thing. She was like, so there's this new thing coming up in North Dakota called peer support. And I was like, what? What's this? You know? And she's like, well, she told me what it was and how you help people that, you know, have been through the types of things that I had gone through with the domestic violence, with the addiction, and you come alongside of them and share your experience, strength, and hope, and, you know, help them with where they're at. Yeah. And, you know, there's this training that's coming up and I want you to go to it. And I was like, okay. So I just kind of like got led into it by someone I really trusted, you know, and I went and I loved it. And I was already doing all of it in the rooms. Like even just me in the rooms for like 7, 8, 9 months, like you're already understanding how this works. Yeah. You know, you have to give it away to keep it. And so it was perfect. So I went to the training. I kept my job at the restaurant, and then I went to training and got a job as well as a peer support. And that's kind of like about 3 years ago, almost 4 years ago. And pretty soon I like stopped working at that job and just went all full peer support. Yeah. And I was like, this can't be real. This is really where I'm at right now. You know what I mean? Like, how did I get here? You know? What just happened? It feels like just yesterday, you know, all these things that I went through, but it also feels like so long ago, because so much has happened in a few years, you know. But when I was doing peer support, I found out that there was another position that potentially I could help with more things than just addiction, and being like that connection to experience, strength, and hope for someone, and help them with like housing and education and employment and social services involvement and any kind of resource that they would ever need, you know, be like a middleman into the community, like a bridge into the community for that. And it's paired with peer support, but it's called a care coordinator. And I was like, I want to do this, you know, but I found out that I didn't have the credentials. Yeah. I never went to school. I'm not a social worker. I don't have a bachelor's degree in anything. So because I had a little bit of time under my belt, like about 1.5 years, almost 2 years of experience as a peer support, they counted that towards 4 years of experience or a bachelor. Yeah. And the other 2 years of experience, which I did not have, came with 2 letters of recommendation. 2 women that I worked with who were like, the one was my addiction counselor. Yeah. That asked me to do peer support, and then another lady who also just knew of me and was a very good friend of her and had met me quite a few times, and they wrote letters to the state vouching for me to be able to get a job that I'm not qualified for.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't, and I hate to say that I'm not qualified for it, but I should say it in that I didn't learn what I do by reading books.
Yeah.
I am qualified for it.
Yes, you are.
But I didn't learn it in the traditional way that other people in my profession did. And I think that adds a whole nother layer of value. And I think that that's what they saw in that.
Yeah.
You know,
I think that's what makes you you.
Yeah.
Like, we can experience anything else, like with going to school for it, but that's a different kind of experience.
Yeah.
But when you actually in the trenches and you was actually in the shit, you was actually using drugs, drinking, doing whatever it was, you know what I mean? It makes you a different person when this right here is a study.
Yeah.
Well, shit. I don't need to go to school for that.
No, and you know what? I don't know any professionals that would have paid for the experience.
Yeah.
Or schooling that I got. No. Nobody in their right mind.
Nobody in their right mind
would pay to go through what I went through to get to where I
start fucking smoking. I'm just gonna start.
Let me just see what this is all about, so I can help people understand it. You know, I don't know. So some really cool things like in my recovery. You know, when Danny and I finally got our shit together and got clean, the girls, the older two, were like just getting into their teens.
Yeah.
And oh my God. The chaos and destruction that ensued in their lives because of the trauma they went through, you know, so much trauma. And that was like in my early recovery. And I remember, you know, my daughter was on probation. My other daughter was, you know, emotionally just, you know, she was acting out with like cutting, just really antisocial behavior, just really having a hard time. And my other daughter was on probation and more outwardly troubled than inwardly. They were just both really having a hard time, and it was like every day I just wanted to just numb that pain from what I was seeing them do, but I chose not to. You know, I knew I took that guilt that I felt and I used it as like I had to like take it outside of me and like put it in front of my head, in my face, and see it every day and be that, let the things that I was seeing happen in their lives be the reason why not to.
Yeah.
Like use it as a different fuel source, you know, rather than pushing me into like depression and anger and inward, you know, guilt and shame. Let that be a reason why I wasn't going backwards. And Danny and I went through a lot with them.
Yeah.
Oh man. And it was hard, but we did it, and we did it clean. And I don't know. And I found forgiveness for my ex really early on because I knew that if I stayed hanging on to that anger and resentment and bitterness, that I wasn't going to be able to stay clean because I like to play the victim.
Yeah.
Put me in that spot, you know? But going back to what I said I'd come back to, like being charged with that child abuse and neglect, I was so angry, but when I came out of it and the fog lifted in my brain and I could actually comprehend what I had been doing, I realized like just how much I was at fault as well for staying. And I owned my part of that. And I apologized to him for the behavior that I had.
Yeah.
I wrote him a letter. I went to his house. I read it to him and I let it go. That day when I walked out, that night when I walked out, the level of like weight and freedom, like all at the same time, that was lifted. I just knew that I was going to be able to move forward from that and keep moving on and working on whatever was going to be next, you know?
Yeah.
So that, and then the third thing definitely that I want to touch base on is like in recovery now, little like 4 years and 9 months. Danny and I just last November, just a month ago, renewed our vows.
There you go.
Because we were so not with it when we got married, and we both have come into relationship with Jesus and like realized how we've just been living in like a contract with our marriage, and we're not in a covenant, you know? We knew that we had unconditional love for each other, but like it was almost like an amends to ourselves and to God.
Yeah.
To do that. And it was really beautiful. You know, it was just the two of us. We did it privately with our pastor. And I'm really grateful we did that, you know, like it's awesome. And, you know, I'm still involved with like 12 step fellowships. Danny and I are both leaders at Celebrate Recovery. Um, you know, we're I don't know, I lead Life Recovery Bible Study every night for the last 3 years. That's part of my recovery. I don't know what I would do without that.
Yeah.
You know, the Word of God. And living the Word of God, not just reading it, but knowing it, being known by Him, and having that connection. Like, I don't know. So I just continue to help people to be out on the streets, like, and just I just don't understand. I didn't understand until like God revealed to me, like, you see, everything you went through, it had a purpose.
Yeah.
You don't know that that's the case when you're in it, but when you can look back and see it and like grab on to that little golden thread that runs through your whole life, things start to make sense. And you're like, okay, I see why that had to happen then. And I see where this pushed me into that. And like where God was there and God was there and God was there. And like, I don't know. Once I seen that, I couldn't unsee it.
Yeah.
And my faith just grew and grew and grew. And like now, a big part of my life and my story is sharing the gospel. That's what saved me.
Yeah.
You know, like that relationship with a power greater than myself, which I was told in like the secular 12-step rooms. You can pick that power. You can pick whatever power you want to be greater than you. That don't make sense to me. If I'm going to pick a power that's greater than me,
yeah,
that makes me greater than it.
Yeah.
So I didn't know what to think of. Like, I was like, this makes no sense. And the only thing that I knew to go to was the Word of God.
Yeah.
Because that's just where I went. Because it was there. And I didn't have to put together like a Mr. Potato Head God and take from here and take from there. Like, it's already there. And so when I started reading it, it just spoke to me. And I had never picked up the Bible. Ever. Why would I have? You know?
Yeah.
And it made sense. It wasn't like some Chinese. It made sense. And it related to me. And that's just my life now. I don't know. I don't know what, and like, it's Danny's life, it's my life. My oldest daughter, you know, my kids are reconciled with us. Like, you know, we have a great relationship with them. I'm a grandma. My daughter that was on probation had 2 kids back to back, and that saved her life and changed her life. Like, but I knew when she got pregnant at 15, and I had been praying for God to do something in her life.
Yeah.
That was what He did, and I was like, okay, your ways aren't my ways, but I understand. I get it, and I trust you. You know, and so just having faith and trusting the process, trusting God. That's how I stay where I'm at. And like, I don't know, people a lot of times ask me, like, how can you handle doing everything that you do every day? And like, don't you take a lot of that stuff home? And like, don't you worry? Don't you? And I don't, because I know that I can only do up to here, and the rest is God and the other person. Yeah. You know, like, I understand the assignment.
Yeah.
And I don't try and take control of things that I don't have control over anymore.
Yeah. That's one basic thing I try to tell people too, is that, you don't understand it. You're alone regardless. I'm sorry, you're alone. When you 10 toes down, it's you. Mm-hmm. You're fighting this addiction, or whatever addiction you're going through, doesn't matter. One of these days you're in recovery, it's going to be hard. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You're going to step out that door, you're going to step out into the big world. And even though if the big man's watching or not, you know what I mean? He's going to, you know what I mean? You're out here alone. Mm-hmm. It's your decisions. It's in your mind.
Yeah.
It's either to pick up or stop.
Yeah. That's one thing I realized is the freedom. You know, the freedom that came was just that freedom to choose. That's clearly all it comes down to.
Yes.
The freedom to choose. I didn't ever have the freedom to choose ever before. Like I said, I would know in my heart, I would see with my eyes, hear all my senses engaged and know that it was absolutely terribly wrong for me to be doing what I was doing. But I didn't have the choice. I did it. I was being driven by something else.
Yeah.
You know? And when I, as soon as I got connection with the power greater than myself, which I choose to call Jesus, God, and the Holy Spirit, I no longer had to fight anymore. Like, I realized that letting go was the best thing I could do.
Yeah.
Because when I get in there and try and fix, control, and manage something, that is me trying to be God. That's me trying to do something that's not my job. My job is to trust him and listen to his word and obey that word as best as I can with the power of the Holy Spirit. That's the only way. I can't do it on my own. Can't do it.
You can say, like, as the 12 steps actually just like leads you to like to religion, really.
The 12 steps for me, this is the best way I can say it, is before I knew God, before I knew him, he knew me.
Yeah.
And he brought me through a series of lots of events, really terrible ones, really great ones, like my whole life. And I ended up in a chair in an AA or an NA meeting, hearing things that I could relate to. And, really, I believe, like, him speaking through other people to me. And, he brought me right where I needed to be.
Yeah.
And when I did those steps, they brought me into relationship with him. So God brought me to AA, and AA brought me to God.
Yeah.
And I kind of look at, like, the 12 steps or the secular 12-step rooms as like spiritual kindergarten.
Yeah.
For me. It was a kindergarten. It was a learning process. And it was step by step. This is what you do next. And I needed that. I needed those clear cut, concise directions.
Yeah.
And like when I got steered into the Word of God, I found those there too. And I was like, well, looky here. Yeah. I can do this. And I could understand it. And that blew my mind. Like, it's just, I could literally just sit here and rattle off a bunch of scripture. I could, but it's for each person to discover on their own. I have my own experience.
Yeah.
That's all I have. My experience, strength, and hope. My story, my testimony. My mess is into my message, test into testimony. That's pretty much my life,
Came a long way, though. That's the blessing of it. Now you get to help other people out. To try to see what you see for them, or like try to see like an aspect. Say, hey, this is where you can go.
Mm-hmm.
This is what you can be if you just try.
Mm-hmm.
If you just try yourself. But hey, I'm gonna help you, but I can't do all the work, dog.
Right.
You gotta use them 10 toes, man. You gotta stand on the shit and move. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you don't move, you're still gonna be in the same spot. I still remember that quote you gave me a long time ago about the frog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I use it all the time.
The frog. You mean the 3 frogs? One said he was gonna jump.
Yep. 3 frogs on a log.
Yeah, 3 frogs on a log.
One of them decides to jump in the water. How many are left on the log?
Yeah.
Everybody says 2.
Everybody
it's
says
not 2. There's 3. Still 3 on the log.
He said he decided.
He decided. He didn't do shit. Yeah. He just sat there like a frog on a log. He didn't jump. He didn't put action behind it or do anything with that decision. He just had the decision and thought about it and thought about it some more and sat there, And that's where we get stuck sometimes. It's action required.
Yeah.
That's
forward. The thing about this disease. It's like sickness, man. It's a born disease. It sucks when you're going through it. It sucks when you finally get those first footsteps. You get the pink cloud. You get all these things. You know what I mean? But that choice, it all comes down to that choice.
Yeah.
The choice of not to do it.
I don't know how I was maybe like a year and a half clean. And I realized, like, okay, I kind of felt safe enough at that point to, like, stop hyper focusing on not picking up.
Yeah.
And what I did was I shifted in my faith and trust in God. And I realized that I could stop hyper focusing on not picking up and at any cost. Because if I just thoroughly had hyper focused on my connection with him, that would come automatically. I would not pick up. And I was like, whoa, my mind is blown. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I just remember like starting to trust my own thought process again around then, and like making decisions and not having to like ask my sponsor, my mom, my husband, like being able to make a sound decision, know that it's the right thing and follow through with it. You know, it takes time it took time for me to trust myself. With myself, with my own thoughts, you know, and first thought wrong, second thought wronger. Think it through, you know. I know there's a next best, all the way right thing to do. I just have to sift through this garbage and find it. You know, like, where is it?
Sometimes it's a lot of garbage too.
Kicking it around. Or like, you know, like the stadium in your head full of people that are just yelling at you to pick up because this is happening or that's happening. They start throwing cans and bottles at you, and you know, it's really loud in my head for the first 6 months, and then pretty soon like sections of people start dismissing out of the stadium, and every once in a while they get riled up because of this or that or the other happening or triggers, you know, on the outside. But like for the rest of my life, I'm always going to have a few dummies up in the nosebleeds that every once in a while want to pipe up and run their mouth about something that triggers me, or, you know, try and get me to do that thing. Pick up.
Like I remember the movie The Shack, where he's in the garden. He's like, it's just a mess. There's everything everywhere. Then the moment they start digging and start getting to work, and he's like, man, this is a nice garden. Well, this is yours. This is you. I'm like, dang, that's crazy how it was his mental state. But you know what I mean? But I'm very pleased and I'm very blessed for having you on an episode of Lessons to Blessings, you know what I mean, and giving the word out. And that's another thing is that, I mean, I'm not here to diagnose anybody or anything. You know what I mean? I hope somebody out there gets the message of recovery. You know what I mean? I'm really pleased and I'm very happy and grateful for you to be on the show, for real. It means a lot. It's been a while. You know what I mean? Been a while. I only put out like 2 more episodes before this, and I mean, one was the first one was Lacey's, one is yours now, and the next one is up for grabs.
Who knows?
I mean, whoever's want to fill the slot, you know what I mean? And there's a few people in the chamber, but I just don't want to get a misfire, you know what I mean? Hopefully. But other than that, I'm very grateful for you to be on the show.
Thank you. I'm grateful to know you.
I know,
You've come a long way.
I know I have.
You're doing things. I love it. Thanks, Jay.